Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of the Atlanta United Career Mode series. We're going to be kicking off from the last episode where we ended up losing in the US Open Cup final, but this is going to be the last episode of the regular season. We're going to play 4 games in this episode, so a little bit longer of a episode here for you guys, but as you see, player of the competition was announced. It was Brandon Vasquez, so awesome for him to get the top player, obviously playing that second team in the entirety of the Open Cup. As you see there, Minnesota United posing with the trophy in the conference. So disappointed to lose that game, but not that big of a deal. Wasn't really on our list of priorities. Obviously the playoffs were more important, along with trying to win the cup in the playoffs. So there is talking real life now. Atlanta United is in the playoffs playing Columbus Crew on Thursday, so hopefully realistically we probably should be done with this season of the series by then, if not in the next couple days, and then we'll be kicking off the staying up career mode in the Premier League. So I have actually already started recording that. Very exciting stuff to come on in that series. We are going to start off with the original team, by the way, before buying players in January. So we're going to see how long we can last with the players that we have. So kicking off of this episode, we're going up against New England, obviously a team that we struggled against not that long ago, only a couple episodes ago, but we're going to try not to lose 6-5 in this game and try to put on a little bit better of a performance here, and try to shut down Kamara. I don't know where they are in the standings. I wasn't really paying attention whenever it was on the screen, but it's definitely a team that, you know, has the potential to do well, at least in this career mode. Maybe not so in real life until they figure out their coaching situation, but they do play really well in the career mode. So we wanted to get off onto the right foot, but here we ended up getting a little bit on the end of a counter-attack, and Kamara is just able to kind of run around Perez right there and just slot that into the back of the net. So a little disappointing. Actually, I think he ran past Zimmerman there, but a little disappointing to go ahead and concede. Definitely wanted to get off on the right foot, but we were feeling a little bit more confident than we were in that first game against New England, where it felt like our passes weren't right, we weren't connecting well enough, and it just kind of felt like nothing was really working for us. But here, Perez gets very forward on the pitch, and we're just kind of trying to work the ball around. We get the ball to Tito Villalba, who gets it out to Brandon Vasquez, and he manages to win the ball back perfectly there after missing a shot, and it falls to the defender. He just wins the ball back and slots that home on his left foot. So we bring the game back to 1-1 in the 32nd minute. So he's doing incredibly well for us on that right mid side. Obviously playing for Julian Gressel, who wasn't really available, or wasn't really doing that well, I should say, on the right mid. And Brandon Vasquez has come in and done a really good job going into the playoffs. So he's definitely earned his spot going into the playoffs if we continue playing in this 3 in the back formation. The other thing I did want to talk about was, obviously, if you guys watched the game against Toronto, it didn't go as well as planned. It was a fun game nonetheless, and a 2-2 you can't really complain about. Tying both of the games against the best team in the league this season is definitely a good merit for Atlanta United. But Tata Martino did change up the formation a little bit, and it is very similar to the formation that we've been running in the past few episodes here. So it was a little interesting to see. Maybe Tata Martino is watching my episodes and getting a little bit of ideas. In reality, I think it was just, you know, it's a good idea with this team. It kind of makes sense for us to run a 3 in the back when the players are available. I don't think it's a formation we would run with LGP in the team, but whenever we have Anton and Jeff Lorenowitz in the squad, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's not really that far off from the way that we play currently, because Lorenowitz does like to drop back whenever the wing backs go forward a little bit more and the center backs start spreading out. He slides into that third center back spot pretty well. But it was just interesting to see us play with a little bit of a different formation. But here in the 90th minute, we actually ended up conceding and drawing this game 2-2, which was super disappointing. We were playing well in the second half, holding them off as long as possible, but ended up just not working out to our favor. So talking a little bit more about that formation change, it was a little bit closer to 5 in the back than it was 3 in the back. I don't think the wing backs were getting forward quite as much as they could have, and that's kind of what was causing us problems until Miguel Almiron came onto the pitch. I think Assad would have done a little bit better in that left mid position than Chris McCann did. But Assad obviously did well in that left forward position as well, and was the taker of that penalty. So I think it's a formation that could work. I don't think that was the best the team could play with the formation. Obviously, you guys have seen the way that this team's kind of been set up for the past few episodes with Miguel Almiron at that left forward spot, and I think that's kind of where it would play best for him. But until we really get another opportunity to try that, which probably won't be until next season, it's probably not going to be realistic to see it again in the playoffs. It's a little bit too much of a risk. Ended up paying off decently well against Toronto, but I don't know if the team is fully comfortable right now to continue playing like that in the playoffs. So in reality, it's probably not going to happen. But we do have a game against the New York Red Bulls here, trying to get a little bit of redemption for that loss that we had in the beginning of the season. And here Carmona gets the ball, and we're just on a little bit of a counterattack. Kellen Acosta working his way forward, doing really well for us this season. But he continues to let the ball roll on, and Miguel Almiron gets onto the end of it and gives us a lead in the 25th minute of this game. So definitely good to get on to a leading start in this episode against New York Red Bulls, obviously because we did struggle against them in the beginning. But what a beautiful little finish from Miguel Almiron, just kind of chipping that over the keeper and doing beautifully there. Definitely good to see him again in really good form going into the playoffs. As of this point, Joseph Martinez is catching up, and Miguel Almiron, they're kind of like right there neck and neck for it. I will say that I do know in FIFA 18 the Golden Boot race does not stop at the regular season. In the MLS, it does end at the end of the playoffs, so there is a possibility that, you know, depending on how long we go in the playoffs will depend on how many goals we can get. Obviously, it's going to be one of those two that do end up winning it, but it just comes down to who will win it by the end of the season. I did also look at it, and I may not show it in this episode, but we are highly likely to get the assist goal as well. I believe Joseph Martinez is like 30 assists, and Miguel Almiron is like 20, and Tito Villalba might be at like 25. It's insane. They're just scoring for fun, assisting each other. They're not solo goals. It's just fun all the way around. And we managed to grab a second goal in this game and go up 2-0 against New York Red Bulls away from home. So doing really well to try to grab ourselves some goals, get some confidence going into the playoffs. And this is definitely a team that we could end up playing against. Obviously, right now, if you look at the real-life playoff system, realistically, we probably won't see New York Red Bulls in the playoffs unless they manage to upset both Chicago and New York NYCFC. I believe they have to play both of them, and then obviously we would have to beat Columbus and Toronto to end up playing New York Red Bulls in the playoffs. I think it's a team that we match up pretty decently well against. Obviously, it was a little bit of a exciting 0-0 as we go 3-0 up in this game, but I think New York Red Bulls and Toronto are the two teams that we do the best against. Not necessarily saying that they're the best teams, but they match up the best against us, and it creates more of a challenge for us. So going 3-0 up, I decided to go ahead and bring on Andrew Carleton in this game, give him some playtime and give Yamil Assad some rest going into the next game against Philadelphia. Wanted to make sure that we could put our best foot forward in that one as well. But they managed to get a nice little shot on goal here, but we managed to save it and work our way up the field. And Andrew Carleton feels really good in this formation. Like I said at the beginning of the series, I didn't really enjoy Andrew Carleton at that left mid spot, but he does play very well in the three in the back formation in the left mid slot. I think he would play better at the midfield position in a 4-2-3-1. But he does do us a very good job there. But we do end up bringing Kevin Kratz in after we go 4-0 up in this game. I believe that's Joseph Martinez's hat trick at that point. It'll come up right here. It is. He managed to score a second half hat trick within, I believe, like 20 minutes of game time. So really good to see him get forward in that sense. But we do continue to move forward here and try to grab ourselves one more goal before the end of the game, but a little bit of a wayward pass there, and we end up winning the game 4-0. Disappointing not to grab more goals as always, but Joseph Martinez getting his 3 goals, definitely catching up to Miguel Almiron. So a lot of exciting things going on. definitely excited to go ahead and get into the playoffs. The way I'm going to do the playoff episodes is probably going to do each series, each home and away leg in one episode, and then just move on. So we'll have, I think, 3 episodes in the playoffs if we end up making it. Obviously, it's through the entirety of the playoffs. We should have a goal again, or we should have games in the, because we are the first seed, we'll have 2 games against whatever team comes through the knockout rounds, and then 2 games against whoever we beat in that first and second leg. Whoever ends up winning on the other side obviously will end up playing there, and I believe the final is only 1 game, so we may end up locking that into the other episode if we make it that far. So we may actually end up having 2 episodes left after this game, so we'll see how things go. We'll see how the episode goes. As of right now, we are on 71 points with a 63 goal difference. I believe that could be a lot higher, because you guys are going to see right here we actually have scored like 100 and some odd goals, but we've conceded like 50 some odd goals, so it's not great. We're at 108 goals. Obviously the next closest team is 51, but we're conceding a lot of goals. We've conceded as much as the next team has scored, and that's not good. That's not ideal. So we are gonna have to end up looking at some new defenders going into the next season, and obviously going into the Premier League. In that series, we're definitely going to have to make sure that we start shoring up the defense, because I can't outscore everybody. There are really good teams obviously in the Premier League, and the further we get, the more defense we're going to need. So as of right now, I think this formation works well for us. I think maybe we need to make sure that Carmona and Acosta aren't getting up very much at all, and maybe we will one day end up going back to the 4-2-3-1 to make sure that we're playing even better defense than we already are. And then obviously we'll be looking at getting a new keeper in the next season, as well as Brad Guzan continues to decline, and Alec has actually put in his transfer request because we haven't played him in enough games. But you guys saw what happened the last 2 games that we've played him in. He's just on a really bad run of form, conceding 10 goals in 2 games. It's not ideal. It's not great, and I can't trust putting him in going into the playoffs. So I want to try to keep Brad in the team as much as possible, get him in good confidence, so that when we go into the playoffs, he's not conceding really that much and he's playing confidently. So it was hard to get Alec into the team, but he ends up putting in his transfer request, I believe, after this episode, and it was a little disappointing. But here we end up trying to get the ball. Yamil Assad manages to get into a really good spot. Julian Gressel gets on to the end of that ball, and it ends up coming off of Andre Blake, who is definitely a keeper option that I'm looking at. But it's going to be interesting to see how this team kind of runs in the playoffs. Obviously in this game you see that I use Julian Gressel instead of Brandon Vasquez, but the team ends up still working out really well. It's really those front 3, those front 4 players that do incredibly well for us, that as long as they're in the game, we're going to do well. And here we managed to grab the first goal in this one. So already looking good to grab a win against Philadelphia going into the Toronto game. This is obviously going to kind of set the pace for the game coming up. We want to make sure that we stay in good form. Joseph Martinez on 36 goals at this point. It is very likely that both him and Miguel Almiron probably top out at 40 goals each going into the end of the season. So hopefully that does happen for the both of them. It's going to be interesting to see who wins Player of the Year. Obviously, like I said, Joseph Martinez is assisting more goals than Miguel Almiron currently, so maybe he ends up winning it there. But Miguel Almiron obviously does an immense amount of things for this team, and I think both of them equally deserve it, but hopefully they can kind of at least split the awards at the end of the season. But here in the 48th minute, we actually go 2-0 up against Philadelphia, and we're able to continue scoring pretty well. So that's 6 goals in 2 games, playing really, really well. 8 goals in 3, obviously conceding 2 in the first game, but a little bit on a a game without conceding in 2 games, so we're doing really well there. Trying to make sure that we take that into the Toronto game, because that's going to be a tough game against the Giovinco and Josie Altidor's side. I do kind of want to hear your guys' opinion. Obviously, we booed Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley a lot. The conversation's been going around quite a bit. Should we have done that? Should that fan have thrown the cup? Fans should never throw their cups at players or refs in any situation. Giovinco handled it pretty well in drinking straight out of the cup whatever was left and got himself a little bit of beer. But I didn't mind booing them. You know, if we had just if our group was harder to get out of for the World Cup and the players played as hard as they did or as hard as possible and still ended up losing and we missed the World Cup, then okay, you can't really be that mad at the players. But the lack of effort from those players and then the immense amount of effort that they put forth in a little almost kind of a meaningless game against us for a Canadian team, I think is what really got under the fans' skin and ended up what caused a lot more of the booing than just starting at the beginning of the game, because we were booing the entire time. We did boo immediately when they came onto the field, but it really came down to the fact that I think a lot of people were really, really annoyed by that. So I didn't mind it, but I do kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on the antics that went forth in the Toronto and Atlanta United game. Hopefully we do get another game against them. I think I would rather play Toronto over NYCFC. I think NYCFC does better against us, so they match up better against us. I think we match up better against Toronto. Obviously, drawing them in the 2 games we've played so far, we've showed life and the ability to do well against them. I think Miguel Almiron showed that he could definitely put a best foot forward and could end up winning us the game. The team played completely different once he entered the pitch, so it's going to be very interesting to see if we get another opportunity against them, what full health Miguel Almiron would do for the team. But going into this game against Toronto, I recorded this before the game on Sunday, but didn't want to upload it, and you guys are going to see why. I just didn't want to put the bad juju in the air. But Giovinco here ends up just kind of working his way around me, and he gets the ball out to a teammate, and they just start playing really small touch football right here, and I couldn't defend against it, and I kept switching too many players, and he just kind of walked through my entire team and ended up going 1-0 up in the 15th minute, and that was super annoying. It was kind of expected. Giovinco, obviously, I would say probably the best player in the league currently. Here you're going to see that we almost end up conceding right after I purposely actually injured Josie Altidore. I'm not gonna lie, I looked and saw the tackle opportunity, didn't think that I would end up getting a red card for it because I could end up timing the tackle pretty well because he was showing enough of the ball. But here you're going to see that we get an opportunity to score, but then the ref calls the ball dead and Josie Altidore is fully injured on the pitch. I was jokingly in my head thinking, what if I could injure Josie Altidore for the playoffs right now, but didn't think that I would actually do it. And you're going to see in this replay why I actually hurt him. I thought just from the tackle I may have hurt him, but LGP stomps directly on Josie Altidore's leg and I believe broke his ankle at that point. So I think he is going to miss the entirety of the playoffs for Toronto, but we do end up going up the field 15 minutes later and scoring a goal from Joseph Martinez to make the game 1-1. So felt really good to go ahead and get the goal back. Felt a little bit bad about the Josie Altidore injury, but Giovinco I knew by himself was good enough to keep them into the game. And you guys are going to see right here a little bit of a counter attack. Again, the kickoff, it's just a little bit difficult for some reason for me to do well against it. And honestly, hurting Josie Altidore probably ended up hurting me more because Ricketts does so much better against me than Josie Altidore ever does. They end up playing the ball around perfectly. Edwards gets the ball into Giovinco and he scores his second of the game. And we go 2-1 down right after scoring. So disappointing there. And again, Ricketts had a shot that ended up getting blocked. Fell perfectly to Giovinco, who grabs his hat trick in the first half in the 37th minute. So only a few minutes after we had just conceded. And here in the 45th minute, again, Ricketts gets a shot on goal. Brad Guzan comes up with the save, and we end up allowing them to get a corner here. So We still have one more American player that I am still having a little bit of a problem with, and here he manages to get extremely lucky and finds himself in the middle of the box alone after the ball is headed down perfectly to his foot, and he slides the ball in. So we go 4-1 down in the first half. It's feeling like it's going to be the New England game all over again. We're going to go down. Hopefully we can bring it back, but we're inevitably probably going to end up losing this game. But going into the playoffs, it wasn't that big of a deal. This was a team that hopefully we won't have to see in the playoffs if results end up going our way. But obviously the number 2 team, it would have been a little bit more stressful of a game if the league was a little bit closer, but we were able to kind of dominate the league and get enough footing away from them that it wasn't going to be a problem. In this career mode, we can say that we officially did break the MLS record, I believe, in the last game. Toronto officially set it against Atlanta United for 69. We were on 71 points in the last game, and obviously continuing to do well, I think, after that. So we were at 74. So that can be the new record. We can say we can hold that, along with obviously goals scored for players and for the entire team. They ended up scoring again and making the game 5-2. Again, super disappointing to lose this game as badly as we did, and it just kind of made me think I do not want to go up against Toronto in the playoffs. I think I can feel comfortable playing just about any other team in the league, but that is definitely not a game we want to go up against. But that is going to be the end of this episode. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next one, I will see you guys later.